Kristen.
I'm Arthi.
And I'm Caroline, and we're the heads of Heart Club.
Many of you may remember seeing bright colored post-it notes with inspirational messages on them around the last few years. These notes are part of Operation Beautiful.
We are very excited to introduce Caitlin Boyle, the founder of Operation Beautiful, which was launched under blog in June of 2009. Caitlin began Operation Beautiful as a part of her dedication to ending negative self-talk in girls, women, and men.
Operation Beautiful is a campaign to encourage a positive body image. We agree with Caitlin that beauty comes from the inside, and your unique qualities should be valued and celebrated. Please help us welcome Caitlin to Nichols.
Hi everybody, my name is Caitlin. 3 fun facts about me. I like dachshunds, the Miami Hurricanes, and The Walking Dead. That is a weird combination, I know. Alright, let's get something out of the way. So, I know the guys in here are like, Caitlin, dude, Operation Beautiful, there's all this pink, and these post-its with these nice little phrases on them, like, you are so beautiful. This doesn't apply to me. Alright guys, I want you to give me a shot, give me a chance. When I started Operation Beautiful 4 years ago, I had no idea it would become what it is today. So I put about 10 seconds of thought into the name. In hindsight, I wish I had named it something a little bit more gender inclusive, like Operation Beautiful / handsome. But that is a mouthful. So I do want the guys here to give me a shot about it. Guys participate in it all the time. No, they do not write, you are beautiful, and stick it in the boys' bathroom. But they do participate. And even if you would not find yourself writing a positive note to leave for somebody else, I'm sure that you guys have girls and friends and women in your life that maybe could use this message. So give me a chance. All right, so this is Operation Beautiful, essentially. The idea is that people write positive messages on Post-it notes, and then they leave them in public places for other people to find. They leave them in library books, on bathroom mirrors, in magazines, anywhere you can think of, and they write all sorts of things on them. The most common phrase is "you are beautiful," which of course is talking about inner as well as outer beauty. But they write all sorts of things on them, just encouraging a more positive outlook. So I always get the question, which is how did I get started with this? And that leads me to my question for you guys, which is, who in here hates chemistry? Oh my gosh, normally I ask that question, people are like, chemistry! Do people in here love chemistry? Yes. We need chemists. Okay, so if anybody in here is a fellow hater of chemistry, that's kind of where my story gets started, actually. I was going back to college to change my degree, and I had to take all these science prerequisites. And I found myself in chemistry class, and as even the people who are good at chemistry can attest, it's very hard and very confusing, right? And I was really struggling with the class. And one of my pet peeves is when people say that they're failing at a class and they're getting like a B-. But I was actually failing at chemistry. It was really doing me in, and I had a tutor, but I was working full time at the same time. So I was really struggling with time management and just figuring out this horrible chemistry thing. So one day I got my test back in class, and my professor put my test back on my desk, and he put it face down, which is never a good sign, right? And I slowly flip it over, and I had gotten something atrocious, like a 43%. And I stood up and I bolted out of the classroom, because one of the cool things about college is you can do that. So I stood up and I left, and I ran to a bathroom, and I found myself looking into the mirror and thinking all these horrible, horrible thoughts about myself. I was thinking things like, you're so stupid, you're so worthless, you're never going to be a success, you're always going to be stuck in this horrible dead-end job, you're never going to get into graduate school. I was just telling myself, that I was a loser and that I was stupid. And To this day, I don't know why I did it, but I reached in my bag and I pulled out a piece of paper and I wrote, "You are beautiful" on it, and I stuck it on the bathroom mirror. And I remember looking at that note and wondering, who was gonna find it? Would it be somebody who was having a similar meltdown as I was? Would it make them feel better about themselves? And as I looked at that note, I realized that it made me feel better to write that message, both to myself and for somebody else. And so I took a photo of the note because I thought it was such a strange thing that I had done, and I kind of wanted to remember doing it and the feeling that it gave me. So I took a picture, and then I actually ended up going home and blogging about it on my personal blog. And like I said before, I put a couple seconds thought into the name. I called it Operation Beautiful, and I asked people out there on the internet to participate. So much to my surprise, people actually did. And they continue to do so. Wait for it. I may be a blogger, but I can't make PowerPoints work. Anybody? I'll keep telling the story. We'll see who gets to it. Anyways, so let's see, I asked people on the internet to participate. I thought nobody ever would, but they did. Over the last 4 years, I've received 15,000 notes from people all over the world. I've actually gotten a note from every continent, which means, yes, I've actually gotten a note from Antarctica. Somebody literally went down to the South Pole and taped an Operation Beautiful note on the actual pole. Who even knew there was a real actual pole on the South Pole? And to stick it stuff on the post-it wouldn't work because it was so cold. So she had to tape all the way around. And I don't know who saw it besides penguins and polar bears. But it was cool because it was the last note we needed to be on every continent. All sorts of people post notes, girls, guys, older women, like 5-year-old girls are posting notes in kindergarten class because they hear about it from their moms. It's okay. And one of the questions I always get is, do these notes actually make a difference? And when I first started the site, I was just encouraging people to post notes. And then about 3 weeks after I started the movement, somebody emailed me and they said, you should encourage people to write operationbeautiful.com on the bottom of the notes. Because then when people find the notes, they'll be able to, come to the website and see what it's all about. And I was like, you're a genius. So I started encouraging people to do that, and that was when the really cool thing with Operation Beautiful happened, because I did start hearing from people who were finding the messages. I hear from women who are going to court and they're thinking about filing a restraining order against their abusive boyfriend, and they're going to back out, but they walk into the bathroom and they find a note, and it gives them the strength to do it. I hear over and over again from girls and women and men who are in treatment for eating disorders and they find notes in the bathrooms. I've actually received 2 emails from people who are on their way to commit suicide, and they found an Operation Beautiful note in an elevator or in a hallway, and it's what stopped them from killing themselves and encouraging them to get help. Do I think that everybody who finds an Operation Beautiful note has this life-changing moment? No, of course I don't. But it happens, and you never know who's going to find your note, and you never know how it's going to help yourself too to write these positive messages. And I think that's really the coolest thing about the movement is you really don't ever know who's going to find it. So the big question is, why do we need these Operation Beautiful notes in the first place? It's actually something called Fat Talk Free Month this month. And fat talk is this phrase that refers to all this sort of like negative self-talk, like you see at the top. And I would really love to challenge you guys for the next week or so just to notice what kind of negative talk you engage in internally in your own head, like I was doing when I was having that epic meltdown in the bathroom. and also out loud to other people, because we do it both ways, and both ways matter and count. So the question is why do we engage in this negative talk? Why do we say all these mean things about ourselves? It's really complicated. There's lots of causes, but I think there's really 4 main things. The first one is that it's socially expected. And I know that the girls in here can relate to this. Like, if your friends are saying bad things about themselves, you kind of feel like you can say something bad about yourself too, right? Or maybe you don't want to appear like you think too much of yourself, so you say bad things about yourself to appear more modest. It's also a habit. Sometimes we engage in negative self-talk just because it's what we always do, or we do it before we have a big presentation, or we're doing like a sporting event, so we start like beating ourselves down just because that's the way we kind of deal with those complicated emotions. It can also be a crutch. I think this is a big one for a lot of us. When we are feeling that negativity inside, we kind of beat ourselves up to make ourselves feel better. But the biggest one, I believe, is messaging in the media. And this is because we're surrounded by images of people who are perfect and have these perfect lives. And they look perfect, and they seem like everything they do is right. And that's, of course, all media-driven. And that's what we're going to talk about next. So I'm sure you guys know that one of the coolest things about the internet is you can see these celebrity Photoshop examples, right? I'm sure you guys all know what Photoshop is, but of course it's a computer program that lets you digitally manipulate images. I'm a photographer, I love to take photos. I'm not saying that Photoshop is always wrong or bad, but I think the trouble we have with Photoshop is when they use it to create these images of people that don't exist, right? And then we all look at them and wonder, why am I not like that? And when we see the image of the person, we think there's this whole other lifestyle that goes along with that image. So this computer program can create this really false expectation. So like I said, the coolest thing about the internet is we kind of get to see these before and afters of what they're really doing to people in magazines, also in moving things like commercials and music videos. They can alter those things as well, and they do. So I have some really fun before and afters, and I want to go through it and see if we can spot the differences. All right. So this is Andy Roddick. He's a famous tennis player. So real Andy is on the left and fake Andy is on the right. And do you see the difference? You can just call it out. His arms, right? He's got like 32-inch guns on the cover of Men's Fitness. But what's the most, also he has a birthmark on his arm. You can't see it the before photo. They removed it on the cover of the magazine. But what's the big important thing I think about this example is what's the article on Men's Fitness about? How to build big arms in 5 easy moves. You only need one. Photoshop. So I always picture like maybe a dude your guys' age and you're in line at the checkout line at the supermarket and you're like, oh, look at Andy's huge guns. How to build big arms in 5 easy moves. I'll totally buy this magazine and do this workout. But the problem is that Andy's arms don't even look like Andy's arms. And actually, when Andy saw the cover of this magazine, he was in an airport when he first saw it, because celebrities have no control over this stuff. And he fell over laughing hysterically because it was so clearly not his body. All right, this is Kim Kardashian. So real Kim is on the left and fake Kim is on the right. And what are some of the differences you guys notice? Her legs, the cellulite. Hey man, I hate to break this to you, but like every woman is cellulite. What else do you guys notice? Her arms. They gave her a boob lift. They cleaned up her hairline because God forbid, ladies, you have baby hairs on your hairline. They increased the space between her arm and her body to make her waist appear smaller. They also changed her skin tone, which I think is a big one, because what you'll see over and over again in a lot of these examples is they push everyone who is a different ethnicity towards whiteness. So they lightened her skin, and overall they just made her thinner, right? I think this is a really good example because Kim is often touted as being an example of like a hot, curvy celebrity, right? But they still feel the need to make her appear smaller in print media. All right, this is Demi Moore. So this is a really interesting example because she's in a perfume ad on the right. The left is actually an image from Ashton Kutcher's Twitter feed, because they used to be married. So we can compare to the ad. What differences do you guys see? Her eyes, her face, her skin tone, her chest, right? So, and it's little stuff too. Like if you're laying down on a hard surface, there's this thing called gravity, right? And you know, things will kind of like lay a little differently than they would if you're standing up. But they got rid of all that stuff. They also get rid of stuff, and we'll see this more in some examples from Victoria's Secret catalogs. You see how in the left, her neck has creases on it? Because, you know, if you bend your neck and it doesn't crease, then your skin would rip wide open. But in the ad, they get rid of all those like little creases that show that she's bending her skin. So I think this is a really good example of just overall all the changes that they could do to somebody. All right. So this is Melissa McCarthy, who I think is like the best actress ever. This is the UK version of the E poster. Sandra Bullock also looks very strange and photoshopped in this cover, but they have done so much damage to Melissa's face, right? They essentially made her thinner, which again I think is interesting because she's known as an actress who embraces her size, doesn't have any qualms about it. But when they put her on the movie poster, they feel the need to make her thinner again. This one's my favorite. So this is Clive Owen. Real Clive's on the left, fake Clive's obviously on the right. And what's the big difference? The wrinkles, right? He looks like he's a member of One Direction or something. He's a boy band member now. But what is the most important thing I think about this example is what is the ad for? It's for anti-wrinkle cream, right? So again, I picture like your dad flipping through GQ and he gets to this ad. He's all like, dang, look at Clive Owen. He looks like he's 20. Maybe I should buy this anti-wrinkle cream. But of course, it's not the anti-wrinkle cream at all, right? It's Photoshop. Erasing all signs of imperfection or even being close to an actual human being. Okay, so why do they do this? I would love for you guys to take away this message. They do this so that you feel bad about yourself, so that you ultimately buy a product. Because so much of marketing is making you feel like you have a deficit, right? Because if you feel awesome and complete just the way you are, you're not going to buy anything, right? It's really all about motivating you to buy a product, whether it's a magazine or an anti-wrinkle cream, or just buying into the image of a certain celebrity. It's not real, and the whole point is to make you feel bad about yourself. And I know that we just focus heavily on body image stuff, but I really do think that translates to everything. It translates to making you feel bad about your intellect or your popularity or who you are as an individual. That really is the goal, is to make you feel bad. So at this point in the presentation, I know that there's somebody, maybe more than one person, in this room who's sitting there and thinking like, Caitlin, I hate you so much. With your rainbows and kittens and sunshine, and you are beautiful just the way you are. I get it, and I understand that people might have that reaction. I was not always the most positive person. When I was in high school, I was very depressed. I engaged in self-harming to deal with my emotions. I thought the world was a negative, horrible, terrible place, and that everyone in the world, was out to get me and out to get each other. And I always say that if I can come from that extremely dark and unhappy place and be the person who truly believes in the Operation Beautiful message, then so can you. For me, it took therapy and asking for help, but it also took a real effort on my own part to change the way I thought about life and to change the way that I literally thought about everything. It is possible to kind of retrain yourself to be more positive. about everything. And as somebody who has been on both sides of the coin, let me tell you that life in general is so much easier and better and happier when you have a positive outlook about things. Even if it doesn't change your circumstances at all, having that good attitude makes things happen. It makes good things happen in your life. So this is kind of how I began to change my negative self-talk, or that fat talk that I had about everything. So every time I catch myself saying or thinking something negative, I picture a gigantic stop sign in my brain, because I'm a very visual person, and that kind of helps me remember to halt the behavior in its tracks. And then I replace my negative thought with something positive. So here's the important thing about this. There's a lot of studies that show if you're having a negative thought and you just replace it with this outrageously positive thought, you're not necessarily going to believe it, and then it won't be effective. So, if you're thinking, oh, I'm so ugly, I hate my legs, I'm so embarrassed to wear shorts or something, and then you're like, no, you are a supermodel who should be on the runway and in all these magazines, you might not believe it, right? But if you're like, you know what, I'm healthy, I'm happy, and I scored the winning goal at lacrosse this weekend. And that's your reminder that you're more than what you're focusing on. That can be really positive. So the next question I always get is if you engage in that negative talk out loud, should you correct yourself out loud? And the answer is yes. So especially the girls in here, if you catch yourself saying something negative about yourself to your friends, please say, I don't even know why I said that. I know I'm awesome. Moving on. And let me tell you something. It might be embarrassing the first few times you do it, but your friends will appreciate it so much because the things that people say to you about themselves, it has a really negative effect on the way you feel about yourself and other people as well. Okay, some other thoughts about changing that negative loop in your mind. One big one is identifying the source of your negativity. It might be the family you grew up in, or the friends you have, or your current situation, but identifying where it comes from can be really powerful. Making a list of things that you're missing out on because of your negativity can be helpful too. Thinking about, are your thoughts logical? When I engaged in a lot of negative self-talk, I always thought of things like, I'm such a loser, I'm never going to be successful. Okay, seriously? Probably not logical. I will be successful and I can do things. Try not to think in absolutes and blacks and white. Challenge gender stereotypes is a big one. I was talking about this earlier with somebody. So when you hang out with your little sister or you meet your little cousin and you say to her, oh, you're so sweet, you're so pretty, look at your pretty hair. Think about what the effect on saying that to a little girl is. And maybe say to her hey, what's your favorite movie? Or would you rather climb a tree or go kick the soccer ball? Challenge yourself to compliment that people, especially young girls, on things beyond appearance. On that note, it's really great if you just refrain on commenting on appearance in general, both negatively and positively. Catch yourself and think about how often you do that and try to compliment people for things that might matter a little bit more. You guys have great resources on campus. Where's Danielle? She's amazing. If you guys ever have questions or concerns about the way you feel about things, or your self-esteem, or eating, or exercise, she's a great person to reach out to. Not every student at every high school is as lucky to have an amazing resource like that. And asking for help is a big one. It's what changed my life. And never be embarrassed to ask for help. I think a lot of people get caught up in thinking that means that there's something wrong with you or you're a terrible person, but you're not. It means that you're a strong person. And the biggest one, I think, is help others to help yourself. I would really encourage you guys to write these Operation Beautiful notes, for every negative thought you have, or for every time you hear your mom or your sister or a friend say something negative about themselves. Consider turning it around and giving somebody a compliment about something, or writing an Operation Beautiful note. Creating that positivity, it really makes a difference in people's day-to-day lives. Excuse me. Where can you find me? I'm all over the internet. We're at OperationBeautiful.com. I post new notes every day on the site. If you post an Operation Beautiful note, I would love for you to snap a photo of it and email it to me at operationbeautiful@gmail.com. I put every note I receive on the site. And if you guys tell me you're from the Nicholas School, maybe we can do a whole day. Did I say it wrong? No, okay. Maybe you guys can, if you tell me you're from the school, maybe I can do like a whole posting of notes just from you guys, which would be really cool. We're on Twitter and Instagram and Pinterest, and we're on Facebook too. So I encourage you guys to follow us and check us out, and I hope it can inspire you guys to lead happier, healthier lives. Thanks.